Let's start with this story on the front page of The Guardian. Revealed, it says, soaring toll of 28,000 convictions for COVID breaches. Yes, you may have thought, of course, that had gone away, but 28,000 people have been criminally convicted of breaking COVID rules in England and Wales. 2 years after the restrictions were lifted, magistrates' courts are still hearing an average of 100 COVID-related cases each month. Should people be being criminalised for COVID breaches? Robert?
Well, look, I think decisions for magistrates and prosecutors have to be independent. The rules were very clear at the time. I am somewhat concerned to hear that we're still dealing with these cases a couple of years on. I mean, look, my view is at risk of getting involved in individual cases. I think that, that probably individual cases need to be looked at. If there are serious breaches, fair enough. But I'm not sure that carrying on with these cases years after the event is going to serve the public interest at all, frankly.
Just before I come to you, Andrew, but I think that this was at odds with the government's insisted they would treat breaches of COVID restrictions as civil rather than criminal.
Well, look, the rules were very clear. They were fixed penalty notices that you could then challenge in the magistrate's court. So that's the procedures, a bit like parking fines, as it were. And therefore, they do become a procedure in the magistrate's court with an ultimate conviction. Look, my view is, look at individual cases. We've got a backlog. We've got a lot of important cases to deal with. Get our priorities right and serve the public interest.
Angela, should they be criminalised?
There's I think there's 1/3 case backlog in the magistrates' court. And that is because of the cuts that were made to the judicial system during the austerity years. Justice is being delayed a long time for all criminal cases. This is one example. But I have to say, there's one rule for some people and another for others. We had Sean Bailey, Lord Partygate of Jingle and Mingle, was actually introduced to the House of Lords as a legislator for the rest of his life yesterday, while there's still a potential police inquiry hanging over him for that party.
Should there be an amnesty then for all these people? Should they just not be made to pay the fines?
Well, look, I mean, some of them, the fines are £6,000, £10,000.
Apparently, the average fine issued in magistrate courts last year was £6,000, and some people have been fined as much as £10,000, presumably because non-payment and so on then rolls up.
Quite often, these are people that can't afford it, but the people who wrote the rules in Downing Street are being given fixed penalty notices that they can dispose of.
Well, yours is a charge of hypocrisy. But should people be being criminalised for breaking COVID rules?
I think it's time to move on if we can. The serious ones need investigating. But when bailiffs turn up, and I was reading in the paper this morning, once bailiffs turn up, the bills start going up. It goes from hundreds to thousands, and if they're minor things that's happened, it's time to move on. We don't want to be putting any more pressure on families at the moment than they're already under.
Sasha, what do you think? People do get fined, of course, for non-payment of the original fine in other walks of life, don't they?
Yes, but I do agree with Dave here. I think at a certain point we have massive problems within the court system, as Angela rightly pointed out. We're struggling to put actual criminals in jail. And having 100 COVID cases going through the courts every month is not the thing that we should be prioritising right now. And at least half of those fines, I think The Guardian said, were for people under the age of 30. And I'll slightly challenge the idea that the rules were very clear at the time. One of the cases that The Guardian pointed to was a 72-year-old woman who flew to Kenya and didn't have the right kind of COVID test. To be, giving a woman like that kind of a £6,000 fine, I don't know exactly how much her fine was, I don't think should be the priority right now.